X1 blockchain ecosystem, current state and latest developments. September 2025, technical and validator updates, validator onboarding and network size. The X1 blockchain testnet currently boasts around 400 community-run validators, reflecting a highly decentralized network, even before mainnet launch. Onboarding a validator has been made as accessible as possible. FTW participants can spin up a cloud server for roughly $150 SIN-month and use provided automation scripts, for example by Blackbeard, to set up their node with minimal hassle. This low barrier to entry is by design, aligning with X1's first principles that a regular person should be able to run a validator without needing deep pockets. Aspiring validators are encouraged to join the official X1 Validator Telegram group for fake use and support, as the community has been actively helping newcomers get started.
Mainnet readiness and launch process, X1's core development, is nearing completion, and the network is on the cusp of mainnet launch, described by Jack Levin as fairly soon now. The final mainnet genesis will be initiated by the X1 Foundation's node in the Cayman Islands, which will start a Bootstrap validator, Block 0, and then invite all other validators to connect. This Bootstrap node will initially hold 100% of XNT supply at Genesis. Immediately after Genesis, a small airdrop of XNT12 tokens will be sent to each approved validator's wallet to enable them to join the network by staking and begin block production. Once a sufficient number of validators attached to the Bootstrap node, the chain will start producing blocks. At that point, X1 mainnet is officially live. This coordinated launch process ensures the network comes online smoothly and in decentralized manner from day one.
Node configuration and authority updates. In preparation for mainnet, the team has circulated a nodes CSV file listing each validator's identity, vote key, and withdrawal authority. All validators have been asked to verify and update their withdrawal authority keys, ideally pointing them to a secure hardware wallet, for example Ledger, to protect their staked funds. This is a crucial security step, so that once mainnet goes live, no one can withdraw a validator's stake except the owner with a hardware key. Validators are advised to complete any such key changes as soon as possible. Through a formal deadline will be announced, TBA, but core team members have emphasized doing it ASAP to avoid any last-minute issues. Testnet mainnet transition. The switch from testnet to mainnet will be straightforward for node operators. According to X1 devs, validators will not need to redeploy new nodes the twine. Instead, they will simply update their RPC endpoint and purge the old ledger data to point the software from the test network to the new mainnet genesis. In practice, this means editing the config to the mainnet RPC URL to be provided around launch time, deleting or resetting the validator's ledger directory, and then restarting the node. The validator binary and hardware remain the same. This simplicity ensures a quick cut over once the launch signal is given. Operators should watch the validator channel for precise instructions on the timing of this switch.
Performance expectations and improvements. X1 is a fork of Solana's high-performance L1 and remains fully SVM compatible, meaning it inherits Solana's ability to handle thousands of TPS and sub-second block finality. The development team has put significant effort into stability and performance optimizations on top of the Solana codebase. Notably, X1 Labs identified and fixed 3 critical bugs in the Solana code during testnet, eliminating crash scenarios and contributing those fixes upstream. As a result, X1 crashes less and runs more smoothly in testing. Jack Levin even remarked that X1 is a little bit faster than Solana in its current form, thanks to these optimizations and network parameters tuned for the large validator set. The team has also thoroughly stress-tested the chain with high load and is confident it can handle the influx of activity at launch. No Solana-style vote fees, importantly. X1 has removed Solana's controversial validator vote transaction fee. Solana requires 1.5 SOL per DAO, ton-Y for every validator in vote fees. On X1, consensus participation is free for the validators just pay their server costs, hence the $150 per M month for hardware, with no protocol imposed fee to send votes. This change dramatically lowers the economic barrier to run a node. It was possible because X1's devs feel confident in the chain stability, even with hundreds or thousands of validators, whereas Solana introduced vote fees originally as a safeguard against too many low-quality nodes joining. By removing this gatekeeping fee, X1 makes it viable for hobbyists and small operators to participate on an equal footing should, which in turn strengthens decentralization. Solana's fee system tended to favor large validators who could afford the overhead. All told, anyone with even one XNT to stake can become a block-producing validator on X1 to earn a marked difference from needing enormous self-stake and daily fee budgets on Solana.
Decentralization and Nakamoto coefficient. X1's validator strategy is squarely aimed at maximizing decentralization and avoiding the oligopolies seen in other chains. In Solana today, the Nakamoto coefficient has reportedly dropped to approximately 12, meaning 12 entities control enough stake to potentially censor the network. By contrast, X1's launch is expected to have an extremely high Nakamoto coefficient, on the order of approximately 150. Given the broad distribution of stake across hundreds of independent validators, in the community, there's even talk that X1 will be the highest Nakamoto coefficient blockchain upon release. Several protocol design choices underpin this achievement. X1 uses a randomized leader election and rotation versus strictly stake-weighted selection. This introduces fairness so that block producer slots aren't always monopolized by the top stake nodes. In Jack's words, it's like a rotating wheel that elects validators from the whole set, rather than the same few heavyweights always leading. Performance metrics, like uptime and vote responsiveness, also factor into leader selection, so smaller but well-run validators have a chance to produce blocks and earn fees even if they aren't whales. X1 will deploy an automatic stake pool that algorithmically spreads delegations to many validators based on merit criteria. A user delegating to this pool can simply stake XNT and let the system allocate it across validators, considering performance, reliability, etc., rather than piling onto the largest node. This helps prevent a few entities from accumulating all the delegation. The goal is for fees and rewards to be shared relatively equally based on merit rather than stake weight, which contrasts sharply with Solana, where approximately even big validators capture a disproportionate share of rewards. The removal of vote fees and retention of fee burns, discussed more in Tokenomics, also discourage centralized exchanges or mega validators from dominating for profit. Since X1 burns a portion of fees and has no vote tax, there's less economic incentive for a Binance type validator to self-stake billions just to farm voting fees, a dynamic that has led to Solana's so-called validator cabal. In X1, earning more stake requires community trust and performance, not simply being rich. All these measures contribute to X1's immediate and sustainable decentralization at the consensus layer, which observers have noted as a unique achievement for a new chain. The network is starting with a large, globally distributed set of validators, and its protocol is designed to keep power from concentrating fundi, a point of pride for the community and a selling point for X1's security and censorship resistance.
Tokenomics and Launchpad, XNT token genesis and distribution, the native token of the X1 network XNT, will be created at Genesis and distributed in a carefully phased manner. At the moment of Mainnet launch, 100% of the XNT supply will be minted to the Foundation's Bootstrap validator account, essentially held by the X1 Foundation in Cayman. From that point, distribution of XNT will occur along two primary tracks: a validator incentive airdrop. A significant portion of XNT is reserved to reward the early X1 testnet validators who helped bootstrap the network. Each testnet validator will receive a personal airdrop of XNT once Mainnet goes live, proportional to their contributions. The exact formula is to be detailed in an upcoming paper. Critically, this airdrop will be 90% vested over time, with only 10% unlocked immediately for liquidity. The vesting period is about 1 year, 365 days, and validators must continue operating on X1 Mainnet to progressively unlock the remaining 90% of their reward. If a validator goes offline or leaves early, they forfeit the unvested portion funty. For example, at 6 months, they'd only have unlocked half of the potential reward. This mechanism incentivizes long-term participation. Those who stay validating for the full year after launch will receive their entire allotted XNT, whereas anyone who drops out early will lose a chunk of their reward, and that XNT could be reallocated to future initiatives. The aggregate size of this testnet validator reward pool, including an extra Bootstrap bonus, is expected to be on the order of 5% of the total XNT supply. In other words, about 5% of tokens will go to incentivizing the decentralization and early security of the chain through these validators. This is fairly significant, but still a minority, ensuring that the network launch is widely distributed, yet without an oversupply flood. Initial circulating supply and controlled release beyond the validator airdrops, the X1 team is intentionally holding back large token distributions at launch. Jack Levin has stressed that they do not want a massive instant dump of tokens into the market, which could invite speculation and volatility before the network's utility is proven. Instead, the approach is a soft incursion. Start the chain with minimal circulating supply and ramp up distribution gradually as adoption grows. In practice, aside from validators' 10% immediate airdrop and maybe some small strategic allocations, most XNT will initially remain in the foundation treasury or vested contracts. This means the float will be relatively low at first, helping to stabilize the price and allowing value to accrue organically as usage increases. Jack explicitly wants to avoid the scenario where every time I open my mouth, the token dumps due to speculators. Thus, the tokenomics are tuned for slow release and stability of value across communities.
XNT launch on Solana. Alpha Vault plan. X1 is taking a unique approach to introduce XNT liquidity to the market by leveraging Solana's ecosystem post. Instead of immediately listing XNT on a DEX or KEX at launch, the plan is to wait a short period, a few weeks, after Mainnet, to ensure the chain is running smoothly and that XNT has real utility on X1 staking, fees, etc. Once that's confirmed, X1 will launch XNT on Solana as an SPL token through a controlled price discovery mechanism known as the Meteora Alpha Vault. The Alpha Vault acts like a single-sided liquidity bootstrap pool. X1 will deposit a fixed amount of XNT, planned 50 million XNT, roughly 5% of total supply, into this vault on Solana. The vault is configured with a price range initially set from $1 up to $2 USD per XNT. Interested buyers on Solana can then deposit USDC or SOL into the vault during the sale period. The vault will dispense XNT to them at a price that floats within that $1, $2 band, depending on total demand. If demand is weak or modest, the price will stay toward the lower end. It won't drop below $1, which is the floor. In the absolute worst case of very low demand, the price simply remains $1, and not all XNT sells B. But $1 is essentially the introductory price X1 is targeting. If demand is high, the mechanism prevents an immediate runaway pump by capping the initial price at $2. Should user deposits be enough that the clearing price would go above $2, the vault will refund the excess funds proportionally instead of pushing price past $2. This means early participants might get prorated if the sale is oversubscribed, but no one can drive the price above $2 during this launch phase. If demand is somewhere in between, the price will settle in between $1 and $2. For example, a balanced scenario might result in a tilde $1.5 price, meaning the vault sells the XNT at $1.5 on average and raises about $75 million, 50M asterisk $1.5 in USDC SLE SU. The final price depends on how much capital is deposited relative to the 50M XNT available. Outcomes and post-launch. Once this initial distribution is done, those who participated will receive XNT and the Solana. Side trading market for XNT can begin. After the event, the X1 team intends to keep the vault's liquidity open at the $1 floor as a long-term stability measure. In practice, this means a significant portion of the raised UZ will remain in a pool to buy back XNT if the price slips to $1. This creates a price floor so that early buyers can feel confident the token is unlikely to crash below its initial price range, barring extreme circumstances. Meanwhile, the $2 cap is lifted after the launch period, so if market demand is strong, XNT can appreciate above $2 once normal trading commences. The overarching intent is to introduce XNT to the market in a gradual, fairway footy, no instantaneous 100 times S-pikes or crashes, and no one gets completely wrecked by buying at an irrational price on day one. This method is reminiscent of a stabilized arm launch or a Dutch auction with price bounds, aligning with X1's philosophy of measured growth over hype. Timing: the Solana launch, dubbed Hajj on Solana, will only occur after X1 Mainnet has been running for a short while and proving utility. Jack noted that if they were to list the token immediately at Genesis, it could be seen as a speculative launch with no utility, essentially a legal security risk and not in the project's ethos. By waiting a couple of weeks, perhaps 2-4 weeks, they ensure XNT on X1 can be used for staking, fees, governance, etc. before it's tradable elsewhere, satisfying the criteria that it's a functional token and not just an empty promise. As of the latest update, the expectation is Mainnet in the very near term, followed by the Solana. Side token launch, possibly by mid to late Q4 2025, depending on how quickly stability is confirmed.
Vesting, airdrops, and Bootstrap bonuses in addition to Validator incentives, the X1 team has hinted at other distribution programs. The Bootstrap bonus refers to extra XNT rewards for those who continue to support the network early on. Part of this is the vested Validator reward discussed above, but there may also be additional inflationary rewards or bonus pools to encourage early uptime. Jack indicated that combined, the testnet airdrop plus ongoing Bootstrap rewards are around 5% of supply. These are essentially the cost of decentralization, rewarding those who run infrastructure when the network is young. There will likely be further airdrops or incentive programs for new validators or ecosystem participants post-launch. For example, the team mentioned a future allocation to invite validators to come and join the network beyond the initial cohort. This suggests a portion of tokens is reserved to keep expanding the validator set, perhaps to reach 500 plus or 1,000 validators by rewarding those who set up a node after Mainnet. Details are not yet public, but it aligns with the goal of maximizing the Nakamoto coefficient. Another possible airdrop avenue, though not explicitly confirmed in the Twitter space, could involve the Zen community. X1's origin is linked to the Zen crypto project, which had thousands of users on multiple chains. It wouldn't be surprising if some allocation of XNT goes toward engaging that community, for example via Zen soldiers or burners. However, no specific Zen airdrop was announced in this particular discussion, so this remains speculative. Overall, the tokenomics strategy is conservative and community-centric. The team raised funds via community crowdfunding, for example, a WeFunder campaign and Reg de Jegs for accredited supporters rather than traditional VCs. So there isn't a large VC unlock overhanging the launch. Most of the supply will be under the foundation's management, vested to contributors or sold gradually to the public under controlled conditions. This approach helps align incentives. The network launches without immense sell pressure. Early contributors are rewarded over time, and new investors get a relatively fair entry via the Solana vault instead of a gas war or bot-driven IDO.
X1 Foundation in Cayman Footy legal and tax structure. The X1 Foundation, registered in the Cayman Islands, plays a pivotal role in both the launch process and the ongoing token management. Jack Levin has been transparent that the choice of Cayman is largely about regulatory and tax efficiency by launching the network from Cayman. having the Genesis block minted by a non-use entity. X1 avoids triggering us taxation on the creation of tokens. In the US, minting a token that immediately has value could be considered a taxable event. The IRS might view it as income or treasury asset worth dollars. Cayman, however, is a tax-neutral jurisdiction. Thus, when the Foundation's Cayman, base director spins up the Genesis node and mints XNT. No corporate tax liability is incurred on that initial supply. This means the project's treasury isn't immediately diminished by a tax bill and can deploy more resources toward development, incentives, and community growth. The Foundation itself is structured to be the custodian of the majority of XNT assets and the executor of token allocations. The Cayman director has control of the multi-sig wallet that will manage distribution. For example, the vault deposits, the vesting contracts, etc. By separating this from X1 Labs, the US-based development company, the project creates a firewall between the open source protocol, token, and the for-profit entity that writes code. X1 Labs, Jack's company, will still pay its own taxes on revenue or services. But the token economy is effectively in a non-us foundation, which is a common approach for crypto projects aiming at decentralization, in practical terms. This structure also positions X1 well for global participation. A Cayman Foundation can operate akin to an open-source stewardship organization, which might make X1 more palatable in jurisdictions worldwide and help in any future exchange listings. Many exchanges are familiar with tokens launched via offshore foundations. Jack gave the example that even highly successful projects, like Laz Zero, chose to relocate their team to Caribbean jurisdictions to achieve a similar setup. The key point is that none of the value that's meant to seed the ecosystem is lost to taxes up front, and the project is legally set up to distribute tokens and value in a compliant way moving forward. In summary, the tokenomics and launch plan for XNT emphasize fairness, gradual distribution, and legal robustness. Early validators and community backers are rewarded for their support. The public gets a reasonable entry mechanism, and the foundation structure preserves capital for the network. By phasing the rollout of XNT, first on X1, then on Solana, then broader markets, and coupling it tightly with network utility, X1 aims to build a healthy token economy from day one rather than a speculative frenzy.
Ecosystem and applications, unlike many new blockchains that launch empty, X1 is poised to debut with a rich ecosystem of dApps and features, thanks to development by X1 Labs and its partners even before Mainnet. These include a Launchpad, a DEX, gamified NFTs, and integrations with the existing Zen ecosystem. All are built to leverage X1 Solana-compatible architecture while also engaging users on Solana itself. Degen dual-chain token Launchpad. Degen is X1's flagship Launchpad platform for new tokens and projects. It's described as a dual-chain Launchpad operating on both Solana and X1. The concept is to use Solana's established community and tooling to bootstrap activity that will later flow into X1. Degen on Solana has already been live, allowing users to permissionlessly create and launch tokens, similar to the recent pump. Fund, this serves as a marketing and introductory tool to the Solana user for X1. By interacting with Degen on Solana, users become familiar with X1-oriented assets and can seamlessly migrate to X1 once it launches. Integration and user onboarding, a core focus of Degen, is user experience and simplicity. The team is actively looking to absolutely simplify onboarding for a new user, making it super easy even for crypto newcomers to launch or participate in token sales. Since it's built in an SVM environment, Degen on X1 will feel just like using a Solana dApp, Sati, fast and cheap soy, but with the benefit of being on a less congested chain. The tight integration between Solana and X1 means projects can launch on Degen and have their tokens simultaneously exist on both chains if desired, tapping liquidity and users from both ecosystems. This dual approach is a clever strategy to ensure X1 doesn't start from zero activity. It will launch with an existing pipeline of projects and users coming through Degen. skull NFTs and gamification to drive engagement, Degen has introduced a series of NFTs called skulls. These skull NFTs are not just collectibles, they carry real utility and perks on the Launchpad. For instance, holding a skull grants you fee exemptions and special access on the Degen platform. A skull holder gets carte blanche on the site too. You don't pay any fees for launching or other activities. Additionally, skulls act as multipliers for Degen staking rewards. Degen has a revenue-sharing model where a portion of all launch fees go into a vault, and users who stake the Degen token earn shares of that vault. If you have an NFT skull, your share is multiplied. In other words, you earn more from the vault than a non-NFT staker. This incentivizes the most active participants to obtain a skull or skull wars. To further spice things up, Degen features a competitive gamification layer dubbed Skull Wars. This is essentially a volume-based competition. As you participate in token launches and generate volume, you can graduate your NFT from a normal skull to a higher tier skull god asterisk, 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 asterisk. A skull god presumably has even greater multipliers and prestige. The idea is to reward those who contribute the most to the platform's activity, perhaps those who launch many successful tokens or trade in high volumes by leveling up their NFT status. It's a clever way to keep users engaged over time, turning the Launchpad into a kind of game economy hybrid. Integrated social feed, Degen also incorporates a social component 30A feed that is like Telegram but built into the Launchpad. Project creators can create group chats or announcement feeds right within the Degen platform, and users can join and discuss new launches. To prevent spam and ensure quality, certain actions on this feed require holding a skull NFT. For example, if you're a project creator and have a skull, you can post and create groups freely without needing to hold large amounts of the Degen token. This effectively uses the NFTs as a gating mechanism to keep the community channel's signal-to-noise high. Only serious, invested users can spam, which they likely won't. Over time, features like trending projects, video embeds, and boosted posts are planned, making the feed a full-fledged social hub for the X1 launch ecosystem. Availability as of the latest update. Around 550 skull NFTs were still unminted out of the total supply. The team has encouraged community members to mint these remaining skulls if they want to get involved and perhaps use them as their profile picture, PFP, in support of X1. The fact that some are still available indicates this is a ground floor opportunity for those following X1 Twine. These NFTs will likely gain in utility and possibly value once X1 goes live and Degen transitions fully into dual chain mode. XDEX to the decentralized exchange and DeFi platform. XDEX is set to be the native DEX decentralized exchange on X1 and more broadly, the cornerstone of X1's DeFi ecosystem. XDEX was originally an independent project on Solana, but X1 Labs just announced a partnership acquisition with its founder, Jason, to integrate XDEX under the X1 umbrella. This means XDEX will launch as an official component of X1, providing essential trading functionality from day one. Core features at launch. On Mainnet launch, XDEX will provide swapping of tokens on X1 AM functionality so that users can trade XNT and other assets in a trustless manner. Having a DEX ready is crucial, especially since XNT itself will initially only be broadly tradable on X1 before the Solana listing occurs. XDEX gives the community a way to exchange value without waiting for KEX listings. The UI will likely be similar to Solana's popular DEX, given the code-based lineage. Beyond swaps, relending, and perpetuals, the X1 team has ambitious plans to expand XDEX into a full-suite DeFi platform. This includes building a lending-borrowing protocol comparable to something like Aave or Solana's margin fee Camino as part of XDEX, and also a perpetual futures trading platform, Perps. In the Twitter space, Jason expressed strong commitment to making XDEX competitive with and surpassing other DeFi offerings soon, not limited to an M. The place you want to go on X1 for all things trading. They are already considering on-chain perps because of the booming interest in decentralized perpetual exchanges. He noted projects like Hyperliquid and others inspiring a wave of on-chain trading volume The roadmap is to get the basic product out version 1 and then immediately work on version 2 enhancements. We can expect XDEX to roll out features like margin trading, money markets, and possibly stablecoin support in fairly short order after launch. Synergy with Solana, similar to Degen. XDEX is also deploying on Solana in the interim. By having a Solana version, XDEX can tap into existing liquidity and users right away. Jack mentioned that running XDEX and Degen on Solana could generate revenue that funds development for X1 TUI, effectively turning Solana into a testing ground and revenue source while X1 is under construction. This is a strategic move. Rather than raise additional money, X1 Labs is using its applications on Solana to become self-sustaining. It also means when X1 launches, these apps aren't new or experimental SWI. They've been battle-tested on Solana Mainnet. We may see a scenario where liquidity can flow between Solana and X1 through XDEX bridges, enabling a unified experience. Ultimately, XDEX will ensure X1 users have a robust, familiar DeFi hub from day one, covering everything from simple swaps to complex trading, all while leveraging Solana's code compatibility for rapid development.
Zenblocks and XNIM OIN staking pipeline from Zen. Zenblocks represents an intriguing cross over between the Zen crypto community and X1. It's essentially a parallel system to mine a new token called XNM, which will be part of the X1 ecosystem. Here's how it works and why it matters. Zenblocks proof of work mining, unlike X1, which is proof of stake. Zenblocks employs a form of proof of work to distribute XNM. Jack Levin mentioned that XNM is something you work very hard on and mine through power. While details are scarce, this could involve solving computational puzzles or committing some form of resource similar to Bitcoin mining, but presumably tuned for community participation rather than industrial miners. It might also tie into the ZenFT concept in Zen. Users could lock up Zen tokens or perform certain on-chain actions to mint limited NFTs. Zenblocks could be an evolution of that idea, requiring effort or burn to yield XNM. The key point, XNM is earned through effort, not purchased or airdropped. It's a fair launch resource that anyone can try to obtain by contributing work. What is XNM? XNM will be a token on X1 chain. Once X1 is live, it is distinct from XNT, the main coin. Sati, think of it as a side token within the ecosystem. According to Jack, you can either hold XNM as a badge of the work you did, or you can stake XNM to earn future XNT rewards. This effectively makes XNM a kind of mining reward token that can be converted into XNT over time. By staking XNM, you'd receive XNT inflation, or some allocation of XNT from the foundation as a reward. This creates a pipeline. Work, Thumbi earn, XNM, I stake, XNM, receive XNT. It's a novel mechanism to involve the wider community, especially those who might not be validators or big investors in the distribution of XNT. Purpose and integration. The Zenblocks initiative serves a few purposes. 1. It engages the existing Zen community fun. Many Zen users are already familiar with concepts of delayed gratification and on-chain. Mining since Zen had a mechanism of time, locked minting. Zenblocks gives them a way to continue that game on X1, too. It further decentralizes XNT ownership by rewarding people who put in some proof of work, not just those who could afford to buy tokens. And 3, it could add a measure of quantum resistance and security by diversifying how tokens are issued. Jack was asked if X1 will embrace quantum resistant features, and he noted that moving to different cryptography fixed schemes is doable in future, but also philosophically. Having a power element via Zenblocks adds to resilience. While Zenblocks runs in parallel for now, likely off-chain or on a separate chain compute, it is planned to be integrated into X1 proper. This means X1 could eventually support both post-consensus and a POW-style minting mechanism in its ecosystem. In essence, Zenblocks and XNM create an auxiliary economy around X1. Participants who missed the Validator program or the token sale can still earn a stake in X1 by contributing work. It aligns with X1's ethos of broad community involvement and fair launch, ensuring that not only early stakers or buyers get all the tokens, but also those willing to mine or contribute CPU GPU power have a share. Expect more details on Zenblocks as the project matures. It's a very innovative piece to watch.
Other ecosystem notes. Beyond these major components, X1 Labs has hinted at additional developments. They are working on an X1 wallet, possibly in collaboration or extension of the Backpack wallet, to give users a smooth way to interact with X1 dApps. A tailored wallet could improve user experience, especially if it can handle both Solana and X1 seamlessly. Given the dual chain strategy, the team's rapid development mindset, why wait for others, let's build it ourselves, means we could see even more applications like on chain governance tools, NFT marketplaces, etc. Come to X1 sooner rather than later. The first few months of Mainnet will likely prioritize stability in the core dApps, Launchpad, Delaware X, Perps, blending. But after that, the ecosystem could expand quickly. X1 is also fostering a builder community because it's Solana compatible. Existing Solana projects could port over to X1 with minimal friction. If X1 gains traction, we might see a lot of familiar DeFi and NFT protocols deploying there to capture a new user base. The Foundation's healthy treasury, thanks to the Cayman setup, could enable grants or incentive programs to attract developers post-launch, fueling further ecosystem growth. In summary, the X1 ecosystem at launch will be far more developed than a typical new L1, with Degen onboarding users and projects, XDEX providing critical financial infrastructure, Skull NFTs adding community gamification, and Zenblocks engaging the wider crypto base. X1 is positioned to hit the ground running. This multi-pronged approach, Surdi, part growth hack, part community empowerment, reflects Jack Levin's strategy to leverage the best of Solana's innovations while correcting its shortcomings, delivering a blockchain that is immediately useful and fun to participate in.
Strategic vision and action items for participants. The vision for X1 is bold yet methodical: to launch a Solana 2.0 type chain that is more decentralized, more accessible, and gradually built up alongside its community. As the Mainnet launch approaches, there are key steps and timelines that different stakeholders in the X1 community should be aware of. Below is a roadmap of imminent events and recommended actions for validators, developers, and community members to prepare and get involved. Near-term roadmap and key dates. See final validator setup deadline. Late September 2025. Current status. The X1 core team has distributed the list of validators and their keys for verification. Action. All testnet validators should double-check that their withdraw authority is correctly set to their desired wallet, preferably a Ledger hardware wallet, and that their node identity and vote keys match the records. If any changes are needed, do them immediately. A formal deadline will be announced. To be safe, assume only days remain. Seeing this could mean your node isn't included at Genesis, or your rewards go to an incorrect address. In short, secure your node credentials now. Mainnet Genesis, expected early October 2025. Current status: the X1 Foundation's director in Cayman is readying the Genesis node. This involves running a single node with the initial ledger, block 0, and minting the total XNT supply. Action. Validators should stay alert in the official channels for the exact Mainnet launch announcement. When the time comes, validators will need to stop their testnet node and update configuration. This means pointing to the new RPC endpoint for X1 Mainnet and clearing deleting the old ledger data as instructed by the team. After that, start the node with a new Genesis configuration. This process essentially promotes your validator to Mainnet. It's wise to back up any important key files before switching, though the identity keys remain the same. The launch could happen at any moment, once everything is judged ready. Given the latest communications, be prepared for short notice, possibly a 24 to 48 HR heads. Once you reconnect to the Bootstrap node, you'll receive the small XNT joining airdrop, 12 XNT, automatically, enabling your node to begin voting and producing blocks. Initial Mainnet operation, October 2025, after Genesis and onboarding of validators, X1 Mainnet will be running with ideally all 400-plus validators producing blocks. The first couple of weeks of October will be crucial as a monitoring and stabilization period. The team will closely watch performance, epoch progression, and any issues. Action. Validators. Ensure your node is stable. Monitor your validator's health. Make sure you're not falling behind or missing votes. Since X1 removed vote fees, your only cost is operational. But you still want to maximize uptime to earn rewards and not risk your incentive vesting. Any bugs or anomalies you encounter should be reported promptly through the Validator group. Action. Community. Regular users can begin interacting with X1 during this phase. If dApps are live, it's a great time to test out the network, set up a wallet, for example, Backpack with X1 added, and perhaps delegate some stake to validators once staking UIs are available. The X1 team likely wants to see real transactions happening, so feel free to mint test tokens, try some swaps on XDEX if live, etc., to put the network through its paces. XNT Solana launch, mid to late October 2025, tentatives. If Mainnet runs smoothly and the chain's utility is demonstrated, the next milestone is the token generation event. Purchase on Solana via the Alpha Vault. Jack indicated this would follow once they're happy with the stability. Maybe a couple of weeks, could take a month, maybe less. This puts a tentative window in mid to late October for the sale. Action. Investors SID community. If you plan to acquire XNT early, prepare for the Alpha Vault event. Make sure you have a Solana wallet, funded with USDC or SOL. Likely USDC will be the primary accepted asset ahead of time. Keep an eye on official announcements. For the exact date and time of the sale and the link, or platform, Mitura's Alpha Vault details will be provided. Understand the mechanics. There's a $1 floor and $2 cap on price. Decide how much you're willing to contribute, knowing that if it's oversubscribed, you might get a partial allocation with some refund. For example, contributing an amount expecting a $1.5 clearing price means if it clears at $1, you'll get more XNT. If at $2, you'll get less XNT and some refund. Also note that only approximately 50 MXNT, 5% supply, will be sold. This is not a huge amount, and with X1's large community, it could go fast. There may be a cap per user, or it might be first to come. First, serve until the vault is filled, 30 details TBA. Be ready to act quickly when it opens. After the sale, XNT will become tradable on Solana DEX. The team will maintain a pool at $1 for stability, but market forces will take over beyond $2. So, plan your strategy accordingly. Some may try to buy more on secondary market if they got little from the sale, etc. Caution is advised around volatility after the cap lifts. DDAP's deployment, Q4 2025, around the time of Mainnet launch, or shortly after. We will see Degen and XDEX go live on X1. Degen's Launchpad functionality and Skull NFT integration should become available on X1 as soon as there are projects ready to launch tokens there. Possibly some projects will time their launch with X1's launch. XDEX's basic swap exchange is expected at chain launch, enabling trading of XNT versus possibly bridged UZC or other assets on X1. The more advanced features, perpetuals, lending, might roll out in stages during Q4. For perpetuals, trading on XDEX might require additional audit and testing, but given the competitive push, it could be live by end of year. This would instantly differentiate X1, as very few L1S launch with an on-chain perps platform. Lending protocol, money market, might similarly arrive in late Q4 or early Q1 2026. This is speculative, but the team clearly has it on the roadmap. Action, developers, SID projects. If you're planning to launch a token or project, coordinate with the Degen team. Early projects on X1 will get a lot of attention. The Skull NFT holder community will likely rally around initial launches, and there may be promotional events. Ensure you have your token contracts ready for SESVM, and perhaps consider a dual launch, Solana plus X1, to maximize reach. Continuing decentralization initiatives. X1's launch is not the end of decentralization efforts. It's the beginning. The team aspires to increase validator count further, raising the Nakamoto coefficient even more. There's mention of a program to attract new validators post-launch. This could coincide with major network upgrades, or when staking unlocks for more participants. By the end of 2025, X1 could potentially open up permissionless validation, if not already, for anyone to join, and maybe receive some incentive from the future allocation pool. Action: those who missed the initial testnet but want to run a validator should stay tuned for announcements. It might become easier to onboard in the months after launch, possibly with some token incentives for joining the party late, to ensure the network keeps decentralizing.
Guidance for different participants, for validator operators and aspirants, technical prep. By now you should have a robust setup, cloud or bare metal server 16 plus cores, ample RAM and VEM, typical Solana validator specs. Double-check your monitoring and alerting systems. Mainnet will put more at stake, literally. It's also wise to upgrade to the latest validator client software right before launch. FTW, the 1st of May, release a final build. So watch for version announcements in Discord, Telegram. Security, if you haven't already, migrate your key authorities to a hardware wallet. The push to set withdraw authority to Ledger is for your protection. On Mainnet, your staking account will hold real XNT value, so don't risk it with an unprotected hotkey. Also secure your validator identity key. Consider using a remote key solution, or at least strong OS security on your server. Best practices: the X1 team will likely enforce good behavior via performance metrics. Keep your vote credits high and skip rate low THUI. This might influence your chances in the leader rotation. And if a stake pool is auto-delegating to good performers, it will certainly matter. Run a Sentinel node or use a failover if possible to minimize downtime. Basically, treat it like you're running a Solana validator, but with even more peers in the quorum. Community, continue to collaborate in the X1 Validators channel. One of X1's strengths is the community. Soon many independent validators sharing tips. For example, Blackbeard's script is a community contribution that helped many get started. That camaraderie will be valuable post-launch as well. It's also been hinted that the more validators that are not connected to each other, the better for the network's sundry, in other words, decentralization of ownership. So try to help new folks come on board. It benefits everyone. Long-term commitment. Remember that your testnet incentive XNT is vesting over 12 months, Auntie. You need to stay online to earn it all. The network will likely have slashing or removal policies for validators that misbehave or go inactive for long periods, even if not immediately. These tend to be introduced eventually. Thus, plan to maintain your node reliably. The upside, as the network grows, your stake, including the earned XNT, could appreciate significantly, and you'll have a say in governance if on-chain governance launches. Validators typically play a big role.
For developers and builders, porting and building, if you are familiar with Solana development, Rust, Anchor framework, etc., you already have the skills to build on X1. All Solana programs are compatible on X1 by design. You might need to reconfigure network endpoints, but your code doesn't change. Consider deploying your existing Solana dApp to X1 to tap a new user base with minimal effort. For example, if you have an NFT project, launching a collection on X1 could make it the first NFT on X1. Extra buzz. DeFi protocols might find less competition and more user attention on a new chain. Opportunities for innovation. X1's unique features also open doors to new ideas. The stake pool as a protocol could allow building services on top, for example, liquid staking derivatives for X1. The integration of Zenblocks could inspire hybrid power pause applications, perhaps gamified mining competitions, or POW, secured NFTs. And the dual-chain nature means you can think in terms of multi-chain apps. Imagine an app where Solana and X1 users interact fluidly. One can envision cross-chain games or arbitrage bots taking advantage of price differences in the two environments. Support and funding. Engage with X1 Labs and the Foundation. Post-launch, it's likely they will announce hackathons or grant programs. Given they saved on taxes and raised via community, they have a war chest meant to foster ecosystem growth. Early builders who show up now could receive mentorship, technical support. Jack and team have deep knowledge of SESVM internals and even financial backing for promising projects. User base. Keep in mind X1's community is large and passionate, drawn from Zen, Hex, and other circles that Jack has been involved in. They will eagerly try new dApps on X1. This is a chance to capture a loyal user base early, but also heed that user onboarding is key sutui, as Simplewater, an X1 community figure, stressed. We need to make crypto super easy for new users. If you crack that on X1, you'll stand out.
For community members and token holders, staking and delegating. If running a validator is not your thing, you can still participate in network security by delegating XNT to validators once the feature is live. The stake pool mentioned will allow even a small holder to distribute stake easily. Keep an eye on official wallet or Explorer releases that enable staking. By delegating, you earn a share of inflation. X1 starts with ~8% annual inflation, decreasing gradually, and remember, 50% of fees are burned to counteract inflation. Delegating early could be quite lucrative, especially if usage and fees ramp up, making staking yields effectively high. Participate in governance if available. As the network and foundation mature, governance proposals might be introduced for upgrading parameters, allocating treasury, etc. Being a token holder means you'll potentially have voting power or at least influence. Stay engaged on forums to voice your thoughts. CN X1 is a community-first chain, and decisions may be guided by public sentiment and open discussion. Skull NFT and Degen platform. If you're keen on the Degen Launchpad, consider snagging a Skull NFT while they last. It's not often that NFTs are tied into a chain's core ecosystem from the start. The Skull could pay off through 0% fees and higher yields if you plan to use the Launchpad extensively. Plus, being part of the Skull clan likely gives access to alpha and a sense of camaraderie in the community. If you prefer not to, you can still use Degen by holding some Degen tokens for staking, but you'll miss some perks. Zenblocks XNM mining, for those who are involved in Zen or just like mining, look into the Zenblocks mechanism. Once details are published, you might set up a rig or dedicate some resources to mine XNM. It could be analogous to mining an early Bitcoin foo. Who knows what future XNT those XNM stakes might yield. It's also a way to support the network's distribution ethos. However, be mindful of the costs. If it's proof of work, it could involve real electricity, computing costs. Only engage if you're technically and financially comfortable. Jack's mention suggests it's proof of work intensive, so it's aimed at the truly committed. Stay informed. The next few weeks will feature rapid developments. Make sure you're following Jack Levin's X Twitter account, the official X1 account, and Telegram channels for real-time updates. There may be additional spaces or Amaz's launch approaches. These are golden opportunities to hear the latest and even ask questions. The community is quite enthusiastic. Rumors and hype will fly, but stick to verified info from the team for critical decisions like when to switch your node or when the token sale is happening. Long-term mindset. Jack has repeatedly emphasized that X1 is in it for the long haul, not a quick pump-and-dump project. The strategic rollout with vesting, controlled supply, and immediate utility is designed to encourage a stable, growing network value. As a participant, adopting a long-term mindset can be beneficial. For instance, if you get XNT early, consider staking or providing liquidity rather than looking for a fast flip. If you're validating or delegating, plan to continue as the network scales. Your stake might be small now, but as usage grows, the rewards and token value could grow disproportionately. X1's goal is to become a major layer 1, and being early in such an endeavor often rewards patience and contribution.
Conclusion. In conclusion, the X1 blockchain ecosystem is on the verge of a major launch, bringing together the technical prowess of Solana's architecture with innovative decentralization and community-driven features unique to X1. The latest Twitter space with Jack Levin and the flurry of Telegram updates paint a picture of a project that is well prepared and meticulously planning its mainnet debut. Key takeaways include a highly decentralized validator set with hundreds of validators globally, bolstered by protocol changes that ensure fairness and broad participation, targeting a Nakamoto coefficient around 150. X1 is likely to set a new standard in decentralization from day one. Thoughtful tokenomics and launch sequencing that avoid the typical pitfalls of new chains. With the X1 Foundation launching from Cayman, heavy use of vesting and uncontrolled price discovery for XNT. X1 aims for a healthy economic start that rewards contributors and invites newcomers gradually. An already thriving ecosystem at the gate. The Degen Launchpad bridging Solana users, XDEX providing liquidity and advanced trading, Skull NFT gamification driving community engagement, and Zenblocks offering a novel mining avenue for token distribution. This level of ecosystem readiness is quite rare and should translate into real activity and interest on X1 immediately post-launch. A clear strategic vision. The team is pacing the launch steps: testnet, SUD, Mainnet, Solana, 2GCD extended features, to comply with regulations and optimize growth, as well as empowering the community at each stage. They've enabled everyday people to run validators, allowed small investors to get in via crowdfunding, and are now giving everyone from miners to NFT enthusiasts a role in X1. The emphasis on creating value and utility before hype is a refreshing strategy in the crypto space. For all participants, the coming weeks are crucial. Now is the time to finalize preparations, whether that means configuring servers, readying wallets, or simply studying the documentation. The X1 community has a palpable energy, and many recognize this as a potentially historic moment. As one community member quipped, "Imagine, it's 5 years ago, and Solana is about to launch Thepin. That's what we have with X1. The difference is that this time, the launch is far more community-owned, and the playing field more level." Actionable next steps. Check that your validator info is correct in the list. Follow official channels for the Genesis announcement. Review the Alpha Vault details if you plan to participate. And perhaps join the next Twitter space to stay updated. By engaging now, you'll be part of X1's journey from the ground up. The X1 team's final message is essentially, let's get it set up and be the best, fastest blockchain out there with the coolest ecosystem. We're launching with very cool things, so we're going to keep it rolling. The foundation has been laid thin. Now it's on the community and participants to build on it and carry X1 to success. Onwards to Mainnet. Sources: Jack Levin, Cypherius Prime, and community speakers. X1 FTW, Twitter Space Siri, the 24th of September, 2025. Key announcements on Validators, Tokenomics, launch strategy, and ecosystem apps were discussed here. X1 Official Validator, updates Telegram channel, September 2025. Coordinator messages about configuration changes, deadlines, and launch prep for validators. X1 project, Gitbook, docs, as referenced in discussion, and community GitHub repos for technical details on consensus changes, stake pooling, etc. And scripts, like Blackbeard's installer,